Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to review our Treez-to-QuickBooks connector. We're going to take a quick look at the connector itself and the activity that it creates in QuickBooks. We're going to do a deeper dive into the settings in a later video. So let's get started. Our Treez-to-QuickBooks connector uses the Treez API to access the Treez data and the QuickBooks SDK or API to import that data into either QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop. We're importing that activity within minutes based on each day's activity. We're doing a summary entry for all of your sales, and then we're creating your individual bills based on the purchase orders that have been received into Treez, and we're also recording any of your cash movement activity and inventory adjustments. With the connector, you can import data either daily, weekly, or monthly. It's totally up to you. No matter when you run it, we're still going to create a daily summary entry for all of your activity, and we're going to create a bill for each one of your purchase orders, again, that was entered into Treez. As I mentioned, the connector works with both QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop, and it is a fast and easy way to import your data. And the connector does have a flexible mapping system which allows you to map the data the way that you want, and we're not dictating in any way how exactly you need to bring that data into QuickBooks. We allow you to pick the GL accounts that make the most sense for you and the way that you do business. We're giving you the ability to track the way that you want to see your sales, cost of goods, and inventory value. You can either do that at a product category level, your product types that are in Treez, your beverage, your cartridge, your edibles, all of those categories, you have the control. So you can either bring all those into a single GL account or into separate GL accounts. It's totally up to you. We even give you the ability to separate out adult use and medical use sales. Current features within the connector, again, we are creating that daily summary of activity. We're not bringing over a transaction for each and every individual sale. It is a daily sales summary, except again for those purchase orders. In QuickBooks Desktop, we're creating a sales receipt for capturing your sales and the payments, the different payment types that were received by the customer. So it could be cash, Treez Pay, cashless ATM, whichever payment methods you're using, you get to map. We're creating a cost of goods sold journal entry, which is going to reduce your inventory value and increase your cost of goods sold. And we're going to bring in, again, your fulfilled purchase orders entries are going to come over as bills into QuickBooks. We're creating a cash movement journal entry and then a inventory adjustment journal entry as well. The only difference that we see over on the QuickBooks Online side is rather than creating a sales receipt, we're creating an invoice with individual payments for each one of those payment methods. Everything else is exactly the same. Again, we're going to allow you to record those sales by category, so you can either choose to bring those into a single asset account or any combination that you see fit. We're also going to capture your discounts, product returns, card fees, delivery fees, taxes, and again, those different payment methods that are being used at the dispensary. For the discounts and the returns, you can choose to either separate those out into separate GL accounts, or we can include those in your sales numbers. So rather than getting a gross sales amount, you're getting more of a net sales. Again, that we're giving you that flexibility to choose. Again, when it comes to those cost of goods sold, you can either choose to funnel those into a single cost of goods sold account or break them out in any way you see fit by product category or product type. Prior to 2023, we did give you the option to include your excise tax in the value of your inventory. If you were in California, for example, where excise tax was paid to the vendor, since laws have changed, that option really kind of has become rather obsolete. However, it is something that is still available in the connector, especially if you want to bring in historical data. We also give you the ability to use QuickBooks classes. So if you have multiple dispensaries that you want to feed into a single QuickBooks file, you're able to do that. You can use classes for each one of the separate dispensaries, and that will allow you to do your profit and loss by class, for example. Now let's take a quick look at the connector itself so you can get an idea of exactly how it works. The first thing I do want to point out is this is a Windows desktop application. So you will need a Windows system It will not work on a Mac unless you're running a Windows parallel on your Mac. So if you do not have a Windows system available, there are other options, and we'd be happy to discuss those with you. But please keep in mind this is a Windows-based application. Here we have our Treez-to-QuickBooks Online connector. Our desktop connector is a separate install, but we're going to take a quick look today at the online version. Here you can see we have a button for each one of the types of activity that we do create in QuickBooks. The receipts button will bring over your sales to your customers, again in a single summary entry, your payments, and the cost of goods sold journal entry. The bills and vendor credits will bring over your fulfilled purchase orders or any vendor returns, realizing that these are usually rather minimum, but we do give you that ability. Cash movement button will bring over all that cash movement activity, so all of your actual dollars that were counted when you do your shift close, that's going to be included in here, as well as any other cash movement activity that you do over in the Treez system. And then finally, the inventory adjustments. Once we select a dispensary to process, all of this becomes active, and we can see the last time that activity was processed, and we can see when we're going to process activity through. By default, we're always going to process up through the previous day. However, you can change this to be whatever day that you want as long as it's in the past. And we even have a way of setting up a buffer days. So if you want to give it, you don't want to bring in activity maybe as of yesterday, but you want to do the day prior or maybe even the day prior to that, there's a setting that allows you to control that. You can either check the box down here and it will check everything and you can hit process selected, or maybe you just want to bring in receipts and cash movement and want to process those. When you push this button, it'll go out to Treez, grab the data necessary to do the receipts and the cash movement activity, and then create that in QuickBooks. We even have the ability to process single dates, but that's usually for testing and or reprocessing a day in the past if needed. Now let's jump over and take just a quick look at QuickBooks and see the activity that is being created over here. So as I mentioned, in QuickBooks Online, we're going to create an invoice. Here you can see a sample of that invoice. We're breaking out those different category sales by category. Now, I could have chosen to point each one of these different items to the same income account, but we're still going to itemize them all here on the invoice. It just makes it a lot easier when we have to troubleshoot anything. We can quickly see, what those different category sales are and identify if we're missing any dollars within a specific category. Again, just kind of helps us help you when it comes down to troubleshooting if we have to do any. Here you can see I chose to separate out my discounts and my returns, and I've got my card fees, and then I've got my different taxes. And then the last thing that you're going to see potentially on an invoice is this offset, which really just comes down to a sales tax rounding difference, and we'll explain that more in our next video. The other thing that we can see here is the payments that were made. We have two different payments. We have our cash, and then we have our integrated ATM. And here's the amounts for those, and we could go take a look at those. They're pretty straightforward. We're going to show you the deposit to account that you mapped over in the connector. It's going to automatically assign that payment to that invoice and bring that invoice down. The goal is to bring it down to 0. If it's not 0, we've got a problem. We'll help you troubleshoot that. The other activity that we create when you do that receipts is that cost of goods sold journal entry. So here you can see, because I broke everything out by category, I've got my reduction of my inventory asset and the increase to my cost of goods sold, and I've got that for each category here in the journal entry. Then we have that cash movement. We refer to that as our Treez end of day journal entry over here in QuickBooks, and you can see that a lot of this is done just because of the end of shift or end of day activity for each one of the cash drawers. And in my example here, that's all of the activity that we see, but we will bring over any cash movement activity that you are doing in Treez. And then we have our inventory adjustment. Again, here it was a entry error that was recorded over on the Treez side, and it was adjusting our edibles product. Finally, let me show you really quick what one of our bills looks like. So here we have the example of the bill, and you can see that we're putting in the inventory asset account that we mapped over in the connector. This bill had both flour and pre-roll. And again, we're just going to insert a line per category to get us that total, and we are creating an unpaid bill here in QuickBooks, and then you'll just need to come into QuickBooks and pay that bill when you're ready. So there we have it, a quick overview of the connector itself and the activity that it creates in QuickBooks. Thank you for checking this out, and keep an eye out for that video that does that deeper dive. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to answer those, and hopefully we can get you set up with our Treez-to-QuickBooks connector. Have a great day. Bye-bye.